Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 28, 2023 meeting of the Niskayuna Complete Streets Committee. We've got a busy agenda for today, so I'm going to get started. First, roll call, then we'll do privilege of the floor, then we'll look at the minutes, and then we'll move on with the rest of our agenda. So let me quickly do the roll call. Tess Healy, not yet, but I hope to see her. Carla Dougal is joining us over the phone, and nice to have you here, Carla. I'm here. Jim Levy, not yet, but I expect he'll be along. Elise Corbin, she feels bad that she's missed a few meetings, but she sometimes joins us late once she gets out of school, so we may see her yet. Andrew Millspaugh, how are you today, Andrew? Good to see you. Catherine Kuzman, how are you, Catherine? It's nice to see you as well. Ben O'Shea is here also. Are you joining us by phone, Ben, or I think so.
My phone.
Yes, good. We also have a new, not necessarily a member, but a member of the staff in the Niskayuna Police Department who is going to be joining Complete Streets Committee, and it's Detective Ian Munger. He's there. How are you, Ian? Good to see you.
I'm good. Just so you know, I do have some prior commitments at 3, but
Sure.
I'll stay and answer whatever I can.
Okay. Well, it's nice to see you, and thank you for joining the committee. And we look forward to being able to work more closely with the police department. We have auto, pedestrian, and bike safety as a similar commitment, and so you'll be able to keep up to speed with what we're working on, and maybe you'll be able to answer some questions that come up on the committee. We also have our town planner, Laura Robertson, joining us, and some guests as we go along. Okay, I'd like to do privilege of the floor next. If there are any citizens who'd like to speak to the committee on a topic, and I see Jessica Krakowski is here with us. How are you today, Jessica?
Hey Bill. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine. So I spoke with Jessica. She contacted Laura and I a couple of weeks ago, and she's interested in maybe getting, not maybe, she's interested in safety issues on Van Antwerp Road, where she now lives. And she would like to speak to us for a few minutes on that topic. So the floor is yours, Jessica. Please go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Van Antwerp Road, but we live on the section between Windsor and Knott in Van Antwerp, between that section and CVS, if that makes sense. So we're in between the two very sharp turns on Van Antwerp. And since we've lived here about 3 years, I've just gotten concerned. Well, one, right, I would love for my kids to be able to safely walk on the road or ride their bikes, right? But not that aside, there are a lot of high schoolers that walk up and down the street and there's no shoulder. There's literally no shoulder. And I've just noticed it too, because I walk our dogs most days as well. And I cut through neighbors' lawns actually when cars come so that I'm off the road and it's safe. But just because there's not a safe walkway doesn't mean people aren't walking on it, which is what concerns me. So cars also go very fast, especially where we live. You would think that the two tight turns that we're in between would slow people down, but it seems like it's more of a challenge and they speed up actually and squeal their tires and go around the turns. We actually had someone on a snowy day slide into our driveway because they were taking those turns too tight. So anyway, and that is another point. If there's any snow on the road, you're forced to walk in the road. So it's not a great situation, especially for the kids that are walking to and from the high school or even the middle school. And actually just yesterday we were driving home and there was a really sweet family walking with a stroller. And I didn't realize until yesterday, but if you're walking on Van Antwerp with a stroller, you're literally forced to be in the road because of there not being a shoulder. So anyway, we would love it. I know there's a lot of neighbors on our street that have families and young kids that would love it too. And it would connect all the people on this street to the other neighborhoods around us, like Antonia or Windsor. And, you know, we would all be able to walk to the library and the town hall and the high school much more safely.
Okay. We have heard from residents, a couple residents from the intersection of Van Antwerp and Knott Street East going up to the traffic circle, some homeowners there, that they see folks walking to GE and they would actually like to be able to walk down to Knott Street East to get to Town Hall, the library, the school district and everything. So you're not the first person who's noted that. And we also have talked a little bit about, you know, is there a possible walk path kind of close to where the nursery is now that would get you from Van Antwerp kind of across and over to Windsor, not Street East really, and then access to the high school. So there are folks that would like to have a connection. Anyway, I did say to Jessica that I and perhaps another member of Complete Streets would be happy to walk Van Antwerp, kind of looking at both sides of the road to see what might be a possibility. And it's a county road, so, you know, we would need to talk to our county representatives about that. And we also in committee have been interested in, you know, working on a side path on Rosendale Road. It's got Rosendale Elementary and Iroquois Middle School and the Lashkill Preserve, but Van Antwerp is another busy road that we'd like to see a walkway on, and even a walkway that just even went from the traffic circle, maybe down past Knott Street East and even just past your house down to Antonia Drive would at least get some of those folks right there. And so
That'd be great.
anyone else like to respond to Jessica's request concerning a side path? And we'll certainly put it on our list of projects that we want to see. And if anyone else would like to walk Van Antwerp with Jessica and I one day, we'd be happy to do that, to look at, you know, both sides of the road and, you know, what some of the impairments might be. And then we'd have to talk to the county folks to ask them to look at it with us. So thank you, Jessica. And I would just add as a footnote, Jessica's interested in this committee, and so she's might be interested in joining us if there's a spot that opens up. Okay, thank you, Jessica. Ben, you're up next. If you Ben Mastriani on
Yes.
Wyoming,
Hi,
go
everybody.
ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, Bill, you said you had some information?
Well, no, I do plan on getting back to you on your email.
Okay.
You know, with some things that, you know, we've talked about, some things we're working on. I mean, certainly the crosswalk on River Road at St. Joseph's. We have asked the county to continue with the crosswalk on Knott and Regent Street. We have again asked the town supervisor. I mean, this committee recommended converting the yield sign at Wyoming and Baker to a stop sign, and also kind of trimming the evergreen tree that's in front of the sign. So any motorists coming over on Wyoming, it would be clear that there's a stop there. And our committee did recommend to the town taking a look at, you know, a possible four-way stop, doing a traffic analysis for Baker and Lexington Parkway. And, you know, we still support that. And again, we did take if it were easy for us to drop the speed limit to 25 miles an hour in Niskayuna, like other communities, but it's just turned out that we're not one of the communities that's in the state legislation where, you know, just a resolution by the town board can do that. So we're kind of stuck there. But again, the Crescent Road, the kind of co-op block, you know, we've been looking at traffic there. And, you know, we have sent information to the school, met with the school district on how to make each school campus safer. So we're still open to suggestions on how to make Niskayuna safer. And I did see a news clip in the Times Union about City of Albany getting started on a program of speed humps that they are using. And so I will be asking their traffic safety officer for the legislation they did. And, just to take a look at that to see what's going on. And when people ask me, I ask them to drive Mordella Drive, which I'd encourage you to drive also. They have speed humps and they work well on that road. So we may make a second attempt to ask the town board if they would consider that. So those are some things I would have mentioned the email, and I'm happy to share them with everyone else.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing this for 8 years now, and there's a big difference between humps and bumps. Mordella is bumps. The residents got together, paid for a
No, it's
whole
humps.
bunch.
It's actually humps.
Well,
Bumps, I think, are kind of steep up and down. A hump, you can drive over these without knocking your muffler off in your car. So I think they fall into the notion
Okay.
of.
I know when
humps.
they first started, my brother lived over there. They were bumps. Maybe they realized they needed to go to humps, because I've always mentioned to no matter who the supervisor was, no matter anybody I could get a hold of, that if you did the humps on the streets, everybody then would use McClellan, they would use Knott, they would do all this, because we had a speed limit sign down there that Yasmin helped get down towards the end of Wyoming. And I worked pretty close with 3 or 4 different chiefs, and they did studies, and there's about 600 cars a day, believe it or not, that go by. I mean, 1 a minute go by coming from Schenectady down Wyoming. And we talked about, like you said, the stop signs on Lexington, all the things you could use to stop everything from 18-wheelers going by, skateboarders, people hollering and getting in a fight. I've sent a video to Yasmin. I remember that time because of going through the yield, people jumping out of the way, all of the above. And anything I've heard of, even trying to put lime green signs on the ground to try to make an awareness, nothing's ever gone through. And I hate to say it, I don't think it will. So it's very frustrating. It's very unnerving as the resident state on the street to have all that traffic and all, an 18-wheeler goes by. I saw an 18-wheeler jackknife the front of the cab coming off Astoria Avenue on the Balltown, and I had to wait 5 minutes. I guess what I'm getting at in Old Niskayuna in general, especially Lexington, we had that one meeting where somebody said the guy 6 inches from my house, and they don't even want to put a yield or a slow or a stop sign there. So I'm a little, whatever word you want to use, saying,
Well, we understand you're frustrated and
show me.
Yeah.
I
I think the
just
Niskayuna
nothing's
PD
happening.
has heard your message, and certainly we have on Complete Streets, and we haven't stopped thinking about residents on Wyoming and what we could do. And again, our committee has again suggested going forward with the stop as opposed to the yield. And again, we do encourage the town to take a look at a 4-way at Lex and Baker Ave. And we might. I know the PD does move their their speed sign around that shows the speed of motorists, and I think that's worth 5 miles an hour just by itself, but they only have so many, so they move them around to other roads. But I think it's just kind of, it's a reason that, Wyoming connects to Girling, and so it is a connecting road, and so cars use it to get to Knott or get to Balltown Road. And I live on a connecting road too, on Clifton Park Road. The high school kids go past my road to get to the high school, and some of them go faster than they should. So I know about that. I don't have the same issue with trucks, and maybe the same volume that you do, but there are plenty of people that live in the old unit that are not happy with the speed and the volume of cars on their streets. And so we're not moving out of town. We're going to stay in touch. So
right. No, I understand that it's not the committee because we keep presenting it. I guess what I'm asking is, I've been told all those things, the stop sign, the yield, nothing's gonna change, I was told, because cars would line up, every excuse in the world. Does the buck stop with the board as far as passing any of those, or where does the buck stop? It's not the committee. That's
Well-
not what I'm talking about.
Well, it's really the town board is responsible for highway decisions on streets in the town of Niskuna, on town roads. Obviously, the state controls the state roads, which would be Troy Road and Balltown Road and State Street. And the county, we have probably 20 county roads in the town, and the county's responsible for those, which are River Road and Knott Street and a number of other roads. And there are other roads that are town roads. And,
So,
you know,
yeah, I spoke with you about that, Bill, and that was great information. But I guess what I'm saying is you go to a meeting and you can't correspond with the board because they don't speak at the meeting. And I guess what I'm saying is, how do you do that? How do you talk to them? What are their qualifications? You guys have the qualifications on this. You should be the one that says, hey, we know more about the roads than you do. Is that a true statement
well,
than the board?
I don't think that's, quite as true, having been on the board and been a citizen, that we pay special attention to bike, car, and pedestrian safety issues. So we've maybe developed a little more knowledge and expertise, and we share that with the board. As a matter of fact, the town board, I think, appointed a complete streets committee to have some citizens look at these issues and make recommendations to them. But, at the end of the day, they're the legal authority managers for the town, including the roads, and that includes speed humps and stop signs and
Right.
all of that, and doing studies on things. And they're not, they're family people. They work for the PD. They want to see safety for everybody in the town too. And so I think if there's, and we haven't given up making suggestions. I do believe that, they're going to move on taking a look again at the stop as opposed to, and a stop is different from a yield. If police cars have patrols out there and they see somebody doing a rolling stop where there's a stop sign, that's clear cut. That's not, maybe that's not a California stop. Someone has violated the law going through that stop sign, and they can start citing people. So you get people stopping. And if there's a little bit of a backup on Wyoming, well, that's just a consequence of slowing cars down and having them not speed.
Yeah.
So, you're certainly free to speak at privilege of the floor at the town board or attend a police committee meeting and present your concern. And,
Yeah, I have.
okay.
I've done all that for 8 years.
Yeah.
And the
Well-
street is the same.
And then, sorry, Bill, I just want to jump in because we do have to move through our agenda,
Yeah,
and privilege of the floor is really not supposed to be too much back and forth.
Yes.
And I just want to respectfully say that I know, Mr. Mastriani, you have been through those boards, and I think that the answer has been no. So I don't know that there's any further way to take it beyond that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for speaking, Ben.
Thank you.
Anyone else out there that wants to speak at privilege of the floor?
So
Okay.
Eliza did type a question. She stated she was interested in the town doing more installation of sidewalks, and she's interested in the status of the easement at Grand Boulevard to Hillside. She spoke with the new superintendent of schools, and he said the district was working with this committee about opening this back up. It was closed by the district by the last administration without any public meeting. The safe walkway needs to be reinstated for our neighborhood. So I do know that I think we have had a couple meetings with the schools on that. I do think that we're trying to even have them, we've been working with them on getting a paved path, right? Bill and Jim and Ben, I think you were all at those meetings. We're trying to get them to get even a paved path from the school over to Hillside. There are some complications because of the private property, and it is an easement. And I know it's caused problems over time, but we do want to continue to support that connection.
And I would echo that. I've said in this committee before that if there are neighborhood residents that feel like there are some people that are misbehaving that use that walkway or not parking there properly, I'm sure that, you know, the folks on the Niskuna Police Department would be happy to cite some cars or tow them or whatever if they're not correctly parked there. And if there are people that are involved in some kind of
Excuse me, Bill.
misconduct.
I
Yes,
think
go
that Aliza is asking that she would want the gate to be opened on the weekends or after 3:30, because
Okay.
not about people complaining about it, but that it's just not as open as it once
Okay.
was. Is that correct, Aliza? Okay.
Yeah, see, I was unclear. I don't think the school district has closed it during school hours, but
Right, but as a
it could be, yeah, I
excuse me,
understand
Bill,
it's,
for connectivity, it's just, you know, if you're with the long daylight hours and the weekends, it's no longer open for that. So that she brought up that there wasn't a discussion about it. It was just all of a sudden it was closed to these restricted hours. And now that COVID's over, is there an opportunity to address that again, to expand the times the gate is open?
okay. Is that something that involves the town, or is that something, if you spoke of privilege of the floor before the school board, that they could just unilaterally decide to open the gate on weekends and after school hours?
Yeah, I know we've tried to help support that there's an easement there, but I don't think that the town actually has a whole lot of control over that particular issue. And I do think that it's an ease, and I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but I think the easement across the property is potentially granted to the school, not the town. So it's something that would have to get worked out between the holder of the easement and then the private property owners.
Okay, well, if that easement, we should find out, I guess, from the town attorney, if the easement goes to the town of Niskuna or if it's to the school district. If it's a school district, then it's their call on what they decide to do. If it's the town authority, then, you know, we could certainly talk about that with the school district. So. But thank you, Aliza. Before you have to go, Ian, one thing I thought that would be helpful, we're going to come to Route 7 safety, but if you're not here when we get there, is that we have had 5 fatal motorcycle auto accidents on Troy Road in the last 15 months. And I guess I was wondering if it would be possible to get kind of a paragraph on what each one of those are, so that if we talk to our county legislators or we talk to the state, or we want to even have folks on this committee be aware of, well, what's happened and, you know, how serious are these accidents, that we would say, oh, here's the 5 that have happened in the last 15 months, and here's what's happened, so that as we have town officials and county officials encouraging the state DOT to take a look at this road, we have a little bit more detail. We're not just saying 5 fatal accidents in 15 months. We know about them.
So I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I kind of just found out about this meeting earlier today, so I don't know if I'm fully prepared to answer that question. I guess we'll start with kind of the first step that we've taken is, it's obviously a state road. Anything that major structurally or that happens that would slow traffic down in any way or impede traffic or things pretty much has to be done through the state.
Yes.
We have reached out as a police department, I believe. We've had the town sign on, and possibly the other police law enforcement that are responsible for that road to reach out to the state DOT. They have somebody whose job it is just to review sections of the road, determine safety plans, why things are safe, why things aren't safe, and make recommendations. So that process has started. I had an opportunity to speak with that gentleman about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, actually before this most recent fatal. And they're very on board. That's what he does. He's very excited about it. So I think that is probably going to be the most important step. It's definitely the first step. And as far as any physical changes to the Route 7, the roadway, that's where it's going to come from, because it's not going to come from us, because the town just doesn't have the legal authority to change that. To kind of address the second part, I will say route speeds on Route 7 are fast. I have a lot of hands on the data that gets collected around the town. I placed a lot of those speed signs, so I see a lot of that data. I know the roads that people say are speed problems. I can see the data, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't. There's speed on 7. There's no question about it. The speeds are fast. What's going to adjust that speed is kind of going to be difficult for me to say. I'll say we're out there all the time patrol. I personally write a lot of tickets on Route 7. A lot of the guys are out there stopping cars, so it's not just an enforcement issue. I wish it was. It's not. And then kind of moving on to your other point is it would be very easy to say each fatal is due to impaired driving or speed, like pick one factor, and there's really not. The 4 that I've been personally involved in are all kind of like a unique microcosm of themselves. So the motorcycle one was, it could get lumped into impairment, speed, reckless driving. There's a lot of different factors that could be involved in that, which doesn't necessarily transition to kind of like a daily driver kind of situation, if that makes sense. The one that just happened, it's obviously still under investigation, but just the initial preliminary investigation, it's a very unique circumstances that doesn't really look like it's going to translate to some other those fatals. So something that the chief and I did speak with, and we just kind of started coming up with the idea, is actually do like a case study on each one of those crashes, and kind of I don't want to say each one, like, if we had taken one factor out, the fatal may have been avoided, but maybe to have something like that says, all right, yes, speed was a factor in all those, but what does that mean? Like, it's if everybody was doing 20, would there have been an accident? No, that's kind of, but to say like, each one that we could arch every single fatal in the last 15 months to speed or to impairment, you just can't do it. Each one is unique. And once you start doing a lot of these, you kind of notice there's some differences in those. So I do think that's something that's worth looking into. And I think that it's something that, as the police department, we're probably going to be handling on our own. I don't know the time frame on that, but certainly once that comes out, we'll be happy to share that with you and try to get you some feedback on those. So there are some, I don't want to call them talking points, but there's some better understanding about why these keep happening.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked in part is just, we have had 5. I don't know if that's just an odd year, but we do have Catherine Kuzman's on this committee who lives on Troy Road. And, she said her experience is that, more people are driving faster on the road. It's gotten more hazardous. And I really think that's our county district attorney, Bob Carney, is his view as well, too. I mean, in writing, that's kind of what he's corresponded with DOT about. And Catherine's made the point, worked for DOT, that it's important for DOT to respond if the town that the road is in and the county that the road is in, if the elected officials in each of those groups is saying to DOT, we believe that we've got a problem here and we need you to take a look at it. And we appreciate that the chief of police in Niskayuna and the county district attorney have conveyed that message, but we'd like to be part of that advocacy group. And we're not saying that we necessarily have the answer to what could be done. It's possible that the state DOT already has some of the answers, but what we're saying is we think we have a crisis situation and they need to take a look at it. And we're glad, that they're doing so. And, we're hopeful that, Catherine has pointed out, as you have, that just enforcement is not going to be enough, in part because speed may not be the entire issue there, but generally speed is a factor, and I think even the PD would say that. So we just like to be informed, and if we can be part of that advocacy, we'd like to do that. And
yeah, 100%. I do know the email or the letter that went out to Dan is the first step. It sounds like you weren't part of that writing the process. I believe it was the elected officials. As that information from Dan comes back, I'm sure I can loop Laura in with his contact information. She can be part of that conversation, that communication. Laura, you're shaking your, are you familiar with Dan Reynolds, or do you know who he is?
No, but I was familiar with the letter going out.
Okay, so as soon as we get any information back, that's certainly something we can do. And if you guys, the community, has information that you think would be important for them to know, I can loop Laura into that contact and make sure that you're able to send that through them. Like I said, I think it's a very complex problem. It's a big, wide open stretch of road. And I think a lot of times, like now that COVID is, for lack of a better term, over, traffic volume has gone way up. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of the issue. It's just there's more cars on the road.
Okay. Anybody else have a question for Detective Munger before he may have to leave at 3? Anyone else have a question for Ian while he's here?
Thanks for being here.
I just have a quick question, Ian.
Sure.
So the reach, there was some, I don't know who sent a letter to the state DOT, but were they looking only at car crashes and not just, pedestrian concerns or bicyclist concerns or anything like that? So it's just vehicles, right, that they're looking at right now, the crashes themselves. Is that
So
correct?
I'll first say that this is probably beyond my pay grade a little bit. I do, after speaking with the representative from DOT quickly, a lot of their funding and a lot of what they do is driven by crash data, not just fatalities, but any kind of routes. That's why you saw the improvements on State Street, just simply because they had so many pedestrian fatalities and hits and everything like that. So I'm not going to say that they're not going to look at usability of the road for all access as something that's important to them. But their primary focus is going to be on crash data. At least that's where it's going to start. That's where the conversation is going to start. So they're going to see the crashes, they're going to see the increased injuries and everything like that. And that's where they're going to start looking. How that ties in with usability of the road for pedestrians, I'm not sure. That's really up to the state. But they did mention that crash is where they start. That's I don't want to say the most important, but that's if there's a problem with crash data or if there's a problem with crashes, that's going to drive a lot of what they do. And honestly, I think you can make a good argument that there is a problem with crashes on Route 7. So.
We also are strong advocates for bike and pedestrian movement throughout the town. And Troy Road is clearly, it's like a moat. I mean, you drive that road, it's probably unusual to see people trying to get across. I mean, we do have some push button crosswalks on some of the intersections where there's a light, but there are not very many pedestrians that use those. And so as a committee, we'd like to see some physical infrastructure in place that would make it easier for people to cross Troy Road, to say use the bike path to get down to the bike path, or even just to like if you're an employee at Bellevue and you take the bus and it's on the other side of the street, it'd be nice to have a push button crosswalk to be able to get safely across the street. And so if the state's going to be looking at some things on Troy Road that are minimizing accidents, we also want to look at some things that will improve the ability to get across that road for bikers and pedestrians. So that's something that, we're very interested in as well.
Yep, I 100% agree. I think there are quite a few people that use the bus route on Route 7, and there are some apartment complexes, a little bit in the hospital and some other areas that people do get off and on. So maybe CDTA has that information on usage of different stops, and that might help with that. So that I don't think you're going to hear any arguments from the police department. I don't know what we can do to make that happen, but we're certainly not going to argue against that.
Yeah. Well, we're all talking about being advocates with DOT, since, you're right. It's a state road. They own the road. They'll make decisions on applying for grants or doing what they want to do. But we're part of a constituency that wants to let them know that, there are some issues, not only with car accidents and fatalities, but overall volume of crashes and just the experience of residents, trying to get across the road and use the road. And so we want to make sure those get presented when we get a chance to talk to them. So, and
my last 30-second plug just before I leave is I do encourage anybody, anytime I talk to a resident about stop signs or traffic control devices, the U.S. Department of Transportation has what they call the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD. It's available online. It's a national document, and the town is obligated to follow that for a whole bunch of different reasons that I don't fully understand. But when people are talking about, replacing yield signs with stop signs or putting in stop signs into roadways to slow cars down, putting in crosswalks and sidewalks, this manual really spells out exactly what each sign is for, what each crosswalk or traffic control device is for. And I hear a lot of people that really want to put a stop sign in to slow cars down. And on that manual, highlighted, underlined, and bold-faced is stop signs don't control speed. And so there are reasons for stop signs 100%. I think as a town, we probably have too many stop signs. But that's certainly, that manual is a great resource. And if anybody has questions or they're talking about putting in like a walkway or yield signs or anything, I really recommend everyone to read that. It's a little dry, but it does go through everything. All right. Thank you very much.
As a footnote to that, we have had pedestrians complaining about cars making the exit from Wyoming onto Baker and both ways. And so it's not just necessarily slowing movement that, we have pedestrians that could be endangered, that cars really, we feel like, need to stop at that intersection and look carefully both ways before they proceed there, not necessarily as a slow traffic device, but as a safety device.
And I wasn't mentioning that intersection. I wasn't saying anything about it. I just wanted to say it was in general, like, I think it's a good place to start a lot of conversations.
Yes.
And Wyoming is obviously a very long, very complicated situation. So it's that wasn't a singling that out.
Yeah.
All right. Have a
Well,
safe
thank
day.
you for joining us today. Okay. All right. Why don't we get back to our agenda here quickly? Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our March 31 meeting? And any changes? If not, I'd like to move acceptance of the March 31 minutes. I'll so move, and looking for a second. Andrew Millspaw is a second. All in favor of accepting the minutes for March 31? Just put your hand up. Okay, good. We're all set on that, so we'll approve those minutes. The next thing on old business is our 2023 goals. We reviewed those at the last meeting and approved those. And I guess I did want to just ask Laura, is it okay for us to send those to planning committee and police and public safety, or the town board in general, just to say, here's the committee's goals for 2023, things that we're going to be working on? We're not saying we're going to get all these done, but just, as a committee, we've identified some things that we want to pour some energy into in 2023. And here's the list.
Yes. That's fine.
Okay. And the priority letters, I was wondering if those have been converted to a letterhead form, and whether the town supervisor has seen them, whether she'd be comfortable signing those. And if she is, do Ben and I need to stop by and get them signed and send them out?
Yeah, they have been converted to letter form. I didn't actually think about, I will have to ask her if she wants that to go to the EDHP or if she's comfortable signing them. So I'll get back to you guys on that.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, under new business, planning board referrals, anything, Laura, that you have from the planning board you want us to take a quick look at?
A lot of the projects you've been looking at are ongoing, but currently there's really no change to any of them since the last time you looked at them. So if you had any general questions, I left that on there, but we don't have any new referrals. We may still be looking at some of the projects we've been working on, like the Mohawk Club and the State Street, but right now the plans really haven't changed since the last time you saw them.
Okay. Can I ask just quickly, is the planning board, are they at all receptive to the bike path kind of going around the T so that it doesn't interfere with the play of golf and then getting over to Row Road? I mean, that was a recommendation we had coming out of our last meeting. And I think there was a Mr. Young who lived that way who also recommended that to us. And I guess I was just wondering if you shared that as a possibility with the planning board and whether they thought that might be workable or not.
I have shared that with them. They are looking at a variety of alternatives, and the town designated engineer has been looking at the alternatives. A new plan hasn't been developed since the last one that you saw. So the developer is still sticking to the entrance off of Ruffner. But the information is before the planning board with the sort of pros and cons of the different access points.
Anyone else have a question or observation on the Ruffner Road plan that they want to ask Laura while we're here? Okay. Laura, just quickly, I see a lot of little red flags on the 4 houses behind CVS on Balltown Road. Is there a plan out there? Is somebody thinking about that? I mean, is it possible those 4 houses are going to be knocked down and something proposed for that lot? I just was wondering, is there anything new on that, or
The only update on that was I mean, if you guys have been on the Complete Streets for long enough, you may remember that we worked on a project that essentially had a private road between Van Antwerp and Balltown through there, taking down the single family homes and putting up townhomes. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Oh, the zoning board of appeals said no, and the project can't move forward without the approval of the zoning board of appeals. So essentially it was dead at that point. And the applicant did sue the town over that. And just recently the judge ruled in favor of the applicant, but the town did decide to appeal. So that case, that proposal is still moving its way through the courts. And I don't believe that, and while there's pending legislation, that they can, take down any of those single family homes. So I'm not sure why the flags are there, but I don't have a plan, and I don't expect movement on it, at least while it's still in the court.
okay. Okay, thank you. I just thought I'd ask because I walked by there. And okay, anybody else have a question on any of the projects we looked at in the last 3 or 4 months? If not, no one? Okay. Transportation chapter of the comprehensive plan. You sent us a draft RFP. Do you want to just say a word or two about the purpose of that? Laura?
Yeah, so I just what I wanted you guys to do is go through here. There's a variety of things that we need from you for the comprehensive plan. I mean, a fair number of it is done already. Like, you could see that we want the Complete Streets kind of updated map and priority project list to go into the plan. We want to make sure that the CDRPC study on Balltown Road North Corridor is reviewed and included in the plan. I don't think that we'll be able to put this RFP out. So what I'm trying to do is carve some of the pieces that Complete Streets could do and refer them to you. I know at one point you guys have been working on the chapter. The comprehensive plan committee was really supportive of you guys working on that chapter. And so there's I think a fair number of bullets in here that you guys might be able to help the comprehensive plan committee work on. So if you wanted to go through here and kind of highlight things that you'd be willing to work on and that we can then forward on to them, you can just, it's in your packet. You can read it when you have time, decide if there's something that we can take on, and then we can let the comprehensive plan committee know what we can work on.
Okay. Who do you want members of Complete Streets to send those comments to? Back to you, or
Yeah, or me, you and Ben, I think probably, and then we can powwow, decide what we can take on.
okay. So if you want to send comments as you look at the RFP, members of the committee, if you got comments, send them to Laura and copy Ben and I on those, and we'll get together and decide what we can take on. Does that seem sensible to you, Ben, or?
And Laura, you said this RFP is not going to go out?
I don't think so. What we're trying to do is kind of segment it and get different funding for different things. Like, I think we're going to reach out to CDRPC and see if they can fund some of the like the higher level, data analysis and code analysis and stuff like that. I think we're going to see if you guys can help with the Complete Streets elements. We're going to see if the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the town of Niskuna can help with the DEI lens for the plan. So I think we're going to try and leverage. The RFP ends up being a really good roadmap of everything that we want to do for the comprehensive plan, but I think we're going to try and leverage as much as we can, piece by piece, and then put it all together. possibly with a consultant a little farther down the road.
Okay. So it's kind of reading the RFP and also chapter 7 of the comp plan to see what items Complete Streets Committee could contribute on, and what we might do to respond to those things. And okay. All right. Next item is well, anyone else have a thought or an observation on doing that? Does that seem reasonable to everyone? I hope so. I think it is. Okay. Route 7 safety and traffic calming measures. I feel a little sheepish about putting Detective Munger on the spot at his first meeting. I guess gets baptized right away. So Jessica, you can take a page out of that. That'd be ready to be baptized if you to jump in the boat with us. But we want to see some safety things for Route 7, and we're actually very grateful to have a member of the police department join our meetings. And so there's back and forth so that the PD knows what we're thinking about, and we get some input on even some short answers on some things that would be good for us to know right away. And we do have Pete Rebecca, who is the deputy highway superintendent for the town, has a standing invitation to our meetings and joins us some of the time. But we do have, I'll ask, I guess I can ask a question of Laura. We had a brief discussion about this, that Ben was kind enough to send us the note from Safe Streets and Roads for All that the deadline for applying for 2023 is July the 10th. And it's a state road. So, I mean, Niskuna getting together with the county, and it's not like we can put an application together and send it off to the feds, because the state would say, wait a minute, we understand that road's in your town, but it's a state road. We have the legal jurisdiction for that road. And, we do have some people, as Detective Munger revealed, that, they pay attention to traffic safety, and you're doing the right first step of having a conversation with him, and even a right first step if the town supervisor and county officials are conveying to traffic and safety at DOT that, we believe there are some serious things going on, some serious safety things going on with the road that need to be addressed. And it's hard to know what the state's going to do. And it could be that if they move their feet fast, that they could conceivably decide what kind of infrastructure things might be done to slow speed and make the road safer, and apply under the SS4A program. Or they may say we have other options to try to address some of the concerns, or we may have other funding sources. So we may not be submitting an application by July 10. It doesn't mean we aren't hearing your concerns, but and I guess the drop back I had was, well, should the town and the county look at some other projects that we'd like to get done to apply? Because you have, $5 million seems like a lot of money, but really, if you've got a county project and some town ones that are Rotterdam, Glenville, and Niskuna, you could spend $5 million pretty easy. But I think, Laura's view was, well, it's probably not likely that the feds are going to give 2 grants to Schenectady County. If you get one for one thing, they may be reluctant to give us another grant for Troy Road, and that, Troy Road, in terms of accidents, 5 fatalities in the last 15 months is a much more serious situation than some other things. And so, we may hope the state applies and does something by the July 10 deadline. But if not, maybe as we build some data, build an application that, we may submit in another cycle. So I'll just, Ben, go ahead.
I was just thinking that since we now know that there's somebody at state DOT that's in charge of monitoring these types of things, that there must be some sort of mechanism for that person to enact in order to get these things paid for. So, I mean, to me, my hunch is that they're not going to be applying for an SS4A for Route 7. So as you were saying, like about maybe looking a little further down the list, maybe we see something that the county, you know, it might be involved in, maybe like the next priority. And we very well may be too late to do anything by July 10 anyway. So I think like Route 7 itself, it sounds like a state issue, and as long as we know who to press or to push for answers or updates, I don't know what else we can do.
Well, that's part of the discussion we're having now, and I'd invite other members to share their thoughts on.
I happen to agree with Ben on that. I doubt very much that, the state DOT is going to apply for a grant for Route 7. That's just not something they would do. I mean, there's other safety funds out there. There's other federal funds out there that they're probably going to use if there are any engineering solutions that they're going to put forward on Route 7, which I think probably will happen. My only concern at this point is if they're only addressing the car crashes, then they're not going to be addressing any of our pedestrian or bicycling concerns at all. What we need, I mean, we have those crosswalks, but it's still not safe for someone to, run 5 lanes across the road. It's just not. People aren't doing it. So unless they start putting in some kind of engineering solutions like the mediums, that type of thing, I just don't see how they're going to be looking at safety for all users on Route 7. But definitely, most likely, they're not going to use this particular grant for any improvements on Route 7.
Okay.
So I agree with Ben that we should go down the list and look at other county and local roads where, we have an interest
Okay.
applying for this grant.
Andrew, Tess, Jim Levy, Carla.
I guess I'll just say I agree that this is probably going to be a however the DOT refers to it as a capital project, or it's going to be designed and built in. It's likely not going to be a grant. I mean, they might get federal money for it that gets funneled to the state for capital improvement projects, but it sounds like they're giving it attention. But I agree with Ben that if there's a point person now, we should, be the squeaky wheel and keep hammering on it to give it priority, to get it, get it in the queue, get it funded, get it designed, and get it done.
Bill, do we know who the point person is at DOT?
I don't. I'd have to rely on the chief of police.
Okay.
And again, we do have some folks at CDTC that we talk to there, but I think we just don't want our committee getting out in front of the town supervisor or county elected officials or the county district attorney. If they're already talking to DOT, they're aware of the seriousness of the problem. And, if they were asking us for, some technical things that we might say that are structural things that might help slow, but chances are state DOT staff know those as well or better than we do. But again, we certainly can find out who the contact is. And I mean, we could ask Laura if the chief of police would be willing to share the letter they sent to DOT with the committee, and maybe we could see that. And well, I mean, I hate to miss a funding cycle, and we do have a grant writer that we met with, who's I think worked with the town of Glenville to do the Quality Communities Safe Routes to Schools grant. That was a $3 million grant that Glenville and Schenectady County did. That's used to do 2 middle schools, I think 2 elementary schools and a middle school in Saratoga County and a middle school in Schenectady County to make some pedestrian improvements there. I mean, we'd have to move our feet a little bit, but it's not something that we couldn't do. I mean, I think we do have the spreadsheet with projects that we've looked at in the town of Niskayuna. Again, you know, we might have to have a meeting where we get together, a face-to-face meeting at town hall or something where, you know, we take a look at projects and we as a committee, one, we want to open a discussion with the county manager. But, you know, we'd want to identify projects that we feel are priorities that we'd like our town board members to pursue and just say to them, you know, we'd like to spend some of the grant writers' time on putting together an SS4A grant, and we'd have to work with the county, I think. And I mean, the goal would be there's money on the table. If it's a $5 million grant and you have to have a 20% match, it's possible that Assemblymember Steck could find $250,000 for us. It's possible Metroplex could find $250,000. Maybe the town could do $250,000 and the county could do $250,000. And so, and there might be some in-kind work that, you know, people could do so that we, you know, want to talk to the county and say, look, we have a couple projects in Niskayuna. You know, maybe Rosendale Road is too big to do this time around, but, you know, we could certainly talk about it. What would it cost? And we have some other smaller ones that we think are critical, like a sidewalk on Cornelius Avenue or a sidewalk on Birchwood Lane, and, you know, some other crosswalk things that we want to do that we could put together and talk to the county and put an application together and send it in. And even work that the grant writer did on that, if we put together a good argument that there are other quality communities or safe routes to schools, funding sources that he may be aware of, that language that we use to prepare this grant application could be used in other grant applications. So, you know, that would be my thought on that. And I mean, it is close. July 10 is close, but, you know, we got May and we've got June, and, you know, we have to get something written up and get it in front of the town board and the county board, but those things can happen. And if people on the committee feel like, look, let's give it a try, I'm happy to push it. Any further thoughts on that?
Do we know if the county is applying for the grant?
We don't know that, but
Yeah, we don't know, but I did hear that they were interested in it. My understanding of the grant, like the more that we've really dived into it, is that the county is probably a better applicant than we are because they were gonna want to see like cross community benefits and things like that. So we could certainly reach out to the county and see where they are at on that. But I don't know if they're committed to applying for it or not.
well, we can certainly talk to them. I think just talking to some of our county legislative, Sarah May Pratt and Michelle Osterlich and Tom Constantine, who are District 3 county reps, as well as Kathy Gatta and Pete Frazzoni. I mean, none of them have said no to me. They've said we're interested. They've said we'll listen if you've got an idea. And even if we spend time and energy getting some stuff together and we don't make this application deadline, I mean, maybe we can apply for the next one. It's just getting started. And, you know, it's possible that the county manager, Rory Fluman, would say, look, if you got some ideas, let's look at the projects that you want to get done in Niskayuna. They can talk to the town supervisor in either Glenville or Rotterdam to see if they've got one they want to do. And if the county, they may have a project they want to do. And so, I mean, $5 million is a lot for Niskayuna, not that we couldn't spend the money, but on a regional application, when you're looking at the county, if you do one or two in Niskayuna and one in Glenville and one in Rotterdam and one in the city, then, you know, you can spend $5 million quick. So,
Well, if the county, you know, has is planning to do this application, I think that's great and we should be part of that. But if they're not, then the other option is, I wonder if the MPO, the Capital District Transportation Committee, is an eligible applicant for one thing. And if they are, then we can maybe latch on to their application for the grant. And so they may be looking at several communities and we can just be part of that.
Okay.
I don't know that CDTC would be able to get construction funding because I don't know that they
Yeah,
have.
that's right. They don't, but that's true. They can't. They're just planning.
They can do planning, yeah.
Yeah.
But they already sort of have the planning basically done. So I think their role is really coordinating between the communities right now. But I know they were interested in doing that. Like they would like to see Safe Street for All money come to the Capital District, and they're very interested in getting like the right people in the room and coordinating an application. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's something we'd want to use. I mean, if we start working on an application, it could be there's some sources of support to help us
Right.
at CDTC and other places that would help us prepare an application. So,
Yeah.
and I don't have any qualms about calling our county legislators and reaching out to Rory Fluman and saying, look, Rory, can we work on something and try to get something done by July 10? So, Ben.
Yeah, I was just looking at our priority letter list, and I mean, if you take Route 7 off the table, it looks like Knott Street, like the Knott Street corridor, is kind of like next up as far as county stuff. So I don't know if there's Laura, can you tell us what the status is with that one crosswalk that's supposed to happen? I think at Regent and Knott.
The crosswalk on Region and Knott was not approved by the county. They wanted us to wait until they put the one in at Clifton Park and Knott and see if that would serve the need. So that got removed from the grant. So that's currently not funded. It was designed, but not funded. And not approved for construction. The only one that's approved for construction right now that hasn't been started is the St. Joseph one.
Oh, okay. Well, so I'm thinking, and I'm just putting this out there. I'm not making a proposition, and saying we should do this, but to me, if we have two things that we could look at, I see Knott Street and I see Van Antwerp, and I think both of them really need sidewalks, and we can connect Knott Street to Schenectady. There's a bus line right there. There are people that walk up and down that all the time. That hill is wickedly dangerous as soon as you approach Baker coming up from Dean. So there's no way for anyone to walk there on at least that one side.
I think we have the money for that, Ben, that one already. I think.
Well, and then also Van Antwerp, if you think about it, connecting the circle at GE all the way to Union Street. We're really close. Actually, it's really not that far away from happening. It's really the section between Balltown and River Road, which, I mean, maybe that's something that we could look at.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, we don't actually have the money for the sidewalk bill. It came in too expensive, but we have the full design and bid documents, so we can put that out bid if we were ever to get the money again.
Oh, boy. Let me ask you, Ben, if we're thinking about a side path on a county road, would we say Rosendale might be ahead of Van Antwerp in the queue because we have Van Antwerp? I mean, we have Rosendale Elementary and we have Iroquois Middle School, where the school district is going to move all 7th and 8th grade to Iroquois Middle School in 3 years. That we'd want to spend our energy on trying to get the county to do a side path on Rosendale Road. I mean, they have a sidewalk now from Mayfair to Rose Hill, but they don't have anything from Rose Hill down to the Elisha Kill Preserve. And so,
No, you're correct. And that is on the list. I apologize. I didn't mean to overlook that.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm happy to, really look at the list and really get input from the whole committee to say, let's just talk about the options. And if we're going to work with the county, we'd say, well, we like Rosendale Road. And again, I'd ask committee members to look at both Cornelius and Birchwood Lane and, anything else. And I'm happy to send the Excel spreadsheet out again. But if there's a crosswalk or something else that we want to put on the list, then especially if Rory Fluman says, hey, I'm happy to talk to you. we want to sit down with him with some concrete projects. And if Jack Conley's actually done some cost estimates on some of those, and Rosendale Road would not be cheap just to do it, but if you have to do property acquisition, then it gets expensive in a hurry, and we may not, be able to do that. I just think we should look at our list. And again, Rory may say, well, if you give me a couple projects, we can't spend all the money in Niskayuna, even if it's half county roads and half town roads. It's got to be a regional, so I would need to talk to some other people, but I'm open to doing it. And again, if the county's involved, they have, their budget is 35 million a year, so they've got some economic firepower and some grant writing help too to help us do that. So, okay. Would people be able to, if we tried to schedule a little meeting, say the town hall in the evening sometime, to look at our priority list and to say, these are the projects that we'd like to recommend to the town board that we try to get some funding for, and try to do an application under SS4A, and that we would approach our county elected officials and the county manager to see if these could be a part of an application that the county and the towns would put together and submit under SS4A. Would that sound reasonable, folks?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. We'll try to set that up. Okay, good. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Ben. Okay. Anything more on SS4A? Okay. Laura, have you already, you sort of updated us on St. Joseph and Upper Union, or do you want to say anything about Upper Union?
Upper Union, I think you might see construction out there like literally within a week or two, just to actually install the push button blinking lights and lay down the crosswalk. So really the only thing they did last year was update those sidewalks. They redid the sidewalks over there. So they're gonna get back out there pretty soon and finish that up. And then I think I can pull up the email from the engineer, but you're planning on going over to St. Joseph within it's not very long, like 2 or 3 weeks. I did put the sign up out there letting vehicles know that that parking lot was going to be closed. I did get some pushback, which was expected from people who like to park at that parking lot. But when I explained to them that really it's not safe to have vehicles and pedestrians, vehicles parking at in a place where the crosswalk's landing, and that it's really just a safety issue. You can't have that crosswalk in just landing right in the middle of a parking lot.
Yeah.
I think the majority of them were okay. And we did provide a lot of alternatives to where people could drive. Unfortunately, there's no alternative really for people who are biking or walking. So we just had to prioritize that as a bike and pedestrian connection.
Okay. Just one other thought in respect to Ben's point. The sidewalk that would be on that street that would go from Baker down to Lex.
Mm-hmm.
Some years ago, the mayor had said, hey, my piece in the city of Schenectady from Lex up to, I don't know, halfway along that street. I think he's very willing to help fund that. And if I knew the number that would just be, well, what would Niskayuna be on the hook for? I just think there's got to be money out there somewhere that we could ask our town board for some portion of fund balance, or if the mayor says, look, I can find the money to do my half, that between the city and the town of Niskayuna. Ben has a good point, and it's one that I've seen for a long time, that we've done the sidewalk from the co-op all the way down to Baker Avenue, and the awkward point is really the hill from Baker down to the city, that the motorists can't see the pedestrians and the pedestrians can't see the motorists. It's the same situation that Jessica's described, on Van Antwerp, that people are out in the road. And so I just think we should know what the number is, and try to find out.
I'm trying to pull it up, Bill. We have it.
Okay, good. Well, I'll try to reach out to you on that, and if I know some people, either approach the mayor and just find out what would it take in the town to to get that money to finish that project. So I do want to follow up on that. Plum Street sidewalk projects, I mean, is that a money issue? As a town board had to find some more money, or is that? gonna be-
They might, but right now we're seeing if we can add it into the existing contract, and the contractor is coming back with a bid for a concrete sidewalk. My guess is that we won't have enough money, but I need to know what the number is first before so I'm expecting to have a number on the concrete sidewalk in about a week.
Okay.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. Laura, do you think that that information is usable for us as far as like the current rate for what sidewalks are costing?
Yes, I think so. It was actually bid last year, so there's a potential that it's even higher this year. Construction is just unbelievably expensive right now. Here it is.
Thank you.
So the estimates for doing the sidewalk on from Knott Street to Baker ranged from
Be Lexington to Baker on that, right?
yeah, I think it's just mislabeled in this. It says Knott Street at Baker app, but I believe that this is the sidewalk. Ranged from 93,400 to 163,255 for like a half of block of sidewalk.
I mean, is that something that can be bid? Is it possible that there's a
What
hungry?
bid? I'm reading bids to you. Those were the bids when we bid. We bid them September 30th of 2022.
Okay, so 93, if 93 is the low guy, I mean, that's 45 for Niskuna and 48 for the city or something like that. I mean, I would
No,
think,
that's just for the Niskayuna side. That doesn't include the city side.
okay, well, even if it's 93 for us, if it's 93 for the city, I mean, is that something we can ask our town board? Are they willing to consider that out of the fund balance or out of
The
their
town
budget?
board right now is trying to fund the Plum Street sidewalk. I mean, you can ask. I can't commit to
Okay.
what they can and cannot fund. I think there's advantages right now to a lot of things that we couldn't fund in that what you guys are talking about. We have fully bid constructible plans on these things. I don't know that the town can fund them, but I think that like if we're having discussions with the county, like it's not like we have to come up with engineered plans. Like we have the definition of shovel-ready projects. We just were
Okay.
unable to patch
So,
the funding.
Knott's a county roads, and we just need to talk to our county representatives. Matter of fact, it's a county road both in the town of Niskayuna and the city of Schenectady. I mean, if the mayor says, I can find my portion, if you can ask Schenectady County to do the piece in Niskayuna, and they'll fund it, then, we should talk to them about that, and I will. So, okay. How about our demonstration project? Well, one, anything more on, on Plum Street? In other words, what you're saying, Laura, in other words, the bids have come in too high, so the town is thinking about whether to do it, or they're going to have to spend a little more than they hoped, but they still plan to do it, the Plum Street sidewalk.
So the bids came in too high for the Plum Street sidewalk last year. So the town rolled the money as much as they could forward to fund the Plum Street sidewalk this year.
Okay.
What they did to save funding last year was that Plum Street was going to be an asphalt shoulder. And I think even with it just being an asphalt shoulder, it was too expensive. And there was concern that, yeah, a wider shoulder is helpful, but you really want that curb in an area with such a mix of buses and cars and people walking. So we don't have bids for a concrete sidewalk. We only have bids for an asphalt shoulder. And what we're trying to get now is a bid for an a concrete sidewalk with curb.
Okay.
And do I think we have enough money for a concrete sidewalk there? Probably not, but maybe it'll come in close enough that the town can bridge the difference.
Now, let me ask you, the concrete sidewalk, we just have to go from Van Antwerp to the end of the property line of that first house, right?
Correct.
Once we get on school property, then it's going to be on the school district dime to get that sidewalk over to the sidewalk at the bottom of the parking lot on Hillside. Is that the
Correct.
case?
And they had mentioned that they were doing that. But just to give you an idea, I feel like probably most people on this committee know that, can visualize that little piece of sidewalk from Van Antwerp to the entrance of Hillside. And I mean, the bids for the asphalt wing were between 50 and 80,000.
Okay. Well, sidewalk is easier to plow, and as you said, the curbs and having the curb is important because we have young students going in that way, and particularly if there's going to be resistance to having that gate open when you come up from Grand Boulevard to go across. Younger students are going to be using this, so I think it makes sense to do the concrete. But I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a
The
if it's
town board wants the concrete.
120,000 project, and the school says, well, we're good for 60 and the town is good for 60, then we can get there. So
Yeah, but this is just for the town side. This is not. Yeah.
then-
And I'm not being a downer. I'm just letting you know, like, the town keeps setting aside money to try and do these projects, and it's just not enough. It's just amazing how much this stuff costs. And I mean,
that's part of the reason why we got to
little
do it
bit.
now. It's
Yeah.
only going to get more expensive. Had we done this 2 years ago, we'd be done now for an affordable number. And
Well, we're trying.
yeah,
Right now, the engineer's working with the existing contractor to try and get a concrete number from them, not an actual concrete sidewalk number from them.
okay. Okay. Any committee member have another thought on this before we move on to just discussing a little bit our demonstration project for 2023? Okay. Last year, we talked about doing bike lanes on Lexington Parkway between Clifton Park Road and I believe Regent Street, where, we would paint a bike lane on both sides of Lexington Parkway and, have it be up for, a couple of weeks or something like that. And then maybe, we might do a table or something with, for the neighbors to stop by where we do some handouts or discuss with neighbors what they think about the bike lanes and that sort of thing. But we don't want to go another year without doing a project. So I'm just wondering if people feel like this is still a good idea, something we could do and make it a bike education project. And should we just get started on talking to the homeowners on that 2-block section on both sides of the street and get started with planning a demonstration project?
Someone, I know I'm not on the committee, but as someone who used to live on Lexington, I think that's amazing because bikes are an issue there. Not an issue in a bad way, but cars and bikes are an issue there.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, do you have like a mock-up or representation to refer to?
I think Jim Levy prepared one, so I can ask him to, either Laura has it or Jim Levy has it, and I can ask him to send it to the rest of the committee. I might be able to find it myself if I do, but Jim did do one, so we can get that and share that with the committee. Take a look at it. And my understanding is we would do the work ourselves, so we just have to buy some paint that would wash off, and we would paint it, and I think with a paint that would wash off pretty easily, not the more aggressive stuff that we used on Orchard Park Drive that you can still see those sharrows, which is a good thing. They're still on Orchard Park Drive, but they had a 5-year half-life as opposed to 3 weeks. So, but we can find some paint that would do that. And but I'll ask Jim Levy for a mock-up, and it would be something if we talk to neighbors door to door. One, we probably have a sheet about we're complete streets. We're proposing to do this demonstration project. It would go for 2 weeks. Here's a mock-up. That's what it would look like. Here's what we hope to learn. And, hopefully people would be like Jessica would say, oh, this is a good idea. We'd like to see this and would be supportive of it. And I think what we learned from our project on Region is that we really want probably 70% of the residents to say, yeah, we like this idea, and we're fine if you do it here. There may be one or two that would say no, but that's true of life on anything. So, but anyway, Catherine, does this seem sensible to you to do our bike lane project as a demo project, or Andrew or Tess? Anyone? Do we all still feel like it'd be a good idea?
Well, if we do, we should probably get going on it now,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So doing the outreach, I guess, is the first step, right?
Yes.
I think it's still a good idea. We spent a while discussing it and arriving at this version of it. So we should I think we should just go forward.
Mhm. I agree.
Okay, good. That's what we'll do. And pedestrian connections to school campuses. I did send a news clip to everybody about the student that was hit crossing the street in front of Ballston Spa High School, and had some other notes on that. And I did share that with the superintendent of schools came to the last town board meeting in support of when the school buses put the stop sign out for students to either get on or get off the bus. If there are motorists that go around the bus, they now are kind of like stop signs. They take a picture of your license plate. If you're going around it, they capture that picture, and then they send a citation to the owner of the car. And if you don't pay, then I guess you could lose your registration for your car or whatever. But it's being used in the city, and Niskayuna has approved it at the last meeting. So that's I think a traffic safety kind of a thing. But I did say to Matt Leon and Carl Mumte, our superintendent of schools, that we're not happy to see an incident where a student gets hurt, but we need to understand that things that happen in Ballston Spa, those things can happen in our schools too. That we need to be proactive and take the steps to get safe steps, and they're very supportive of that. As a matter of fact, after our meeting with them, the school district is proposing, some things they want to do to improve pedestrian safety at each campus, and try to look at some ways to find some money to do those things. So I'm just grateful that we've got a school board that's interested in bike and pedestrian safety, and so working with them is going to be a good thing. And I think they're aware that just like the email parents on Birchwood Lane are concerned about pedestrians there, parents on Cornelius concerned about kids getting to school there. We've seen people cutting across Balltown Road, so we need to pay attention to Balltown Road ourselves. So if we're going to again push walkability to schools, we got to push the safe infrastructure to get there. Finally, we have 5 minutes. What do we know about Winnie Road? And I'd say that I don't know if you can pull the map up or not, Laura, but this is Audrey Cox lives on Winnie Road. The Flower Hill connection that goes from Flower Hill down to Rosendale Road and then crosses over, that allows people to get to the Mohawk Hudson bike path. I mean, the town spent $500,000 to get that connection established, so people on Merlin and all those streets can get access, and hopefully people on the other side of Troy Road that, if they could ever find a way to get across Troy Road, would be able to access the bike path. And, Audrey has said, hey, there's a walk path now that kind of gets from the end of Winnie Road down to Adam Drive. And I don't know, maybe it's 30 yards or something like that. But her recommendation is that the town should give an easement to the owner of the property and just make that connection so that folks on Winnie Road can get access. And it's not just the hike and bike path, but if you live on Winnie Road and there's a family that has a child with a disability, it'd be nice if they could take that side path, which they could now. It's partly gravel, but you could ride around on Merlin and in the streets that are over there, Valerie Drive. And, if you wanted to get down the bike path, you could do it. And so what we're trying to do is ask the town attorney to find out, and I believe we know, who the owner of the property is, and for the town to reach out to that person to say, listen, would you be willing to grant the town an easement? And if they say, yeah, we could do that, and the town would, I presume, if it put in an asphalt pathway, that they would cover that with their insurance. So the homeowner or the property owner that gave us an easement wouldn't be on the hook if somebody got hurt. There would be a pathway there. And again, my hope also is, even the people, Catherine and folks that live over in Shannon, or is it, what do they call that general housing division, Catherine? It's
Avon
Crest
Crest North.
North. So those folks, I mean, even if they took the sidewalk, even if they went the short stretch on Mohawk and just went down one block from Mohawk to Winnie, I mean, they'd go, I don't know, half a block on the sidewalk on Troy Road, but they'd be able to get access to the hike and bike path.
Right.
And that would be a great thing. And so, I don't know, I don't intend to put you on the spot, Laura, but if you have any information about whether the town attorney is working on this, or the supervisors called the owner of the land, or
No, I
any-
mean, I left it on the agenda because I don't want to forget about it. It seems like some low hanging fruit that we might be able to get an easy win on. So I don't really want to take it off the agenda, but I don't have any updates on it.
Okay.
I sometimes leave it on the agenda because I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm going to talk about it tomorrow, so maybe I can make a map or get some movement on it, but I wasn't able to do that today. So, but I do want to keep working on it.
Can you say who? Is it the town supervisor, the town attorney, or you as a town planner that, who needs to give the property owner a call? I mean, I spoke to the property owner's son, and he thought his father would be fine with it. And I had the name and the phone number of the gentleman. But I mean, I think we should move while the iron is hot. And if he's willing to give us an easement, we ought to be talking to him about it and see if there's a standard easement policy that we could share with him and get this done. So
Yeah, I mean, do you have his contact information?
yes, I do. I'll send it to you. Or unless you want me to, well, you want to forward it to the supervisor, or do you want me to send it to the supervisor and you and whatever?
I mean, I like to involve, or at least keep everybody up to date. You could certainly copy the supervisor on it, but my guess is that probably I would have to do the initial outreach and then coordinate it with the town attorney for eventual preparation to the town board.
Yeah. That would be great, because Audra Cox is the mayor of Winnie Road, and Carla and I have gone out and walked it with her, and she has a petition from earlier, and she's working on a second one and articulating all the reasons. And again, she's going to remind us that, you spend $500,000 on that connection to the bike path. How about doing just a little bit more that's going to, enable a whole bunch of people to
Clarify
connect.
though, the town really spent about $100,000 on that
okay.
bike path, and
Okay, well-
the rest of it was federal and state funding.
Okay, well, it's taxpayer money that's been spent, $500,000. Plus, I don't know if the developer did any, but a lot of money's already been spent to give access people to the bike path, and they want to get on the bike path. So this is just a little piece that, if we do, would be a good thing. And as you characterize it, it's low hanging fruit. So we want to do that. Okay, it's now 4:00. Is there any piece of business that's a 30-second item that people want on the agenda next time, or want to remind us about today before we go? And if not, we'll maybe get together soon to talk about priorities on what we might do in an SS4A application. And I'm grateful to everyone for keeping up with emails and doing work on things in between, and for Laura working hard for us too. So anyway, I'm open to a motion to adjourn for today. Anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Tess has moved that we adjourn the meeting for the 28th. Is there a second out there?
I'll second.
Second from Ben O'Shea. Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you for joining us, Jessica and Eliza joining us. And we'll see you. As a matter of fact, the agenda said our next meeting was April 28th. That's
Oh.
incorrect. It's May 26th. So we'll
May
see you.
19th, actually. I don't know why it's not the 26th. It must be a holiday. Sorry about that. May 19th.
May 19th. Okay. Well, I stand corrected. So May 19th. So we'll be getting together fairly soon, and We'll be working, people that want to work on the demonstration project, we'll get those folks going and we'll get started on a grant for SS4A. And I got some people to approach about some money to do Baker Avenue. So anyway, have a good weekend. Thank you all and for joining us today. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Phil, Laura. Take
Thanks
care,
for having
everyone.
me.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.